Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our monthly Recovery Cafe volunteer training. This is a time for us to build community, to connect with one another, to learn about resources in our community and people who are practicing in the recovery field, and to build skills that might help support our own recovery and the recovery of other people. So today our topic is self-care. And I've asked my coworker, Teresa Shiraishi, to present on the topic today. So I thought first I would have her introduce herself, and then I'll facilitate introducing everyone else before we jump into our topic. Teresa?
Cool. Yeah, so my name is Teresa. I work at the Dove House as a therapist, and I also get to do the prevention education, which means working with high schoolers on developing healthy relationship skills. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and yeah, excited to share different practices that I like to use in my own personal life, that I like to use with my clients, that I like to use with students. And another side note, I also work as a mindfulness self-compassion teacher with the Benji Project and teaching mindfulness classes to teens. So that's a little bit about me.
Great, thank you, Teresa. And thank you again for facilitating today. So I know, I think all of you here, but I'll introduce myself anyway. I'm Brian. I'm the program manager of Recovery Cafe. I'm excited to have us all here today. This is our second to last volunteer training of 2020. Excuse my mistake in my email, please. Our topic is of course self-care this month, and then next month we will have our final volunteer training of the calendar year, which is on the topic of suicide prevention and intervention, and that will be facilitated by Jefferson County's chapter of NAMI, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. So you can stay tuned for our calendar for 2021, which we're putting together in the next few weeks here. We plan to continue our monthly trainings, same third Friday of the month, 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. We decided to take the month of December off to give ourselves that time to prepare for next year. So what I was hoping is, in the spirit of building community, to introduce ourselves to one another. I would love to hear, if you wouldn't mind sharing your name and what brings you here. And Teresa, can you remind me if we had a specific prompt on the topic?
I don't think we did, but if you want to, I could come up with one really quickly.
if you have one in mind, sure.
Something I'm curious is like what self-care means to people. It can mean a lot of things, so maybe just hearing a little bit about that from folks.
Awesome, great. And I would love to keep this to maybe 10:40 at the very latest, that we can wrap up this portion so that we can get to all the topic for today. So just keep the clock in mind, and I won't time you, but I do want to give us that space, but move on to the topics as well. So I'm going to prompt you guys in groups of 3 so you know when you're coming up. So if we could begin with Bruce, Kat, and then Susanna.
Yeah, well, hi everybody, I'm Bruce, and I am, I guess really I'm a volunteer at the Recovery Cafe, Jefferson County. I have also been a volunteer at the Recovery Cafe in Seattle. I am in long-term recovery myself, 44 years clean and sober. I was the first addict in my family to get clean and sober. And I thought I was the anomaly, but over the years I've discovered that no, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And so I've touched these issues from a variety of viewpoints. I think for my thought on self-care, I think really one of the most important things for me is understanding what is my stuff and what's not. Because I tend to, In addition to addiction recovery, I've done quite a bit of Al-Anon and related things because my inclination is to get into fixing other people's stuff rather than my own. And the good thing, you know, when I'm focused and things are working, it's really when I recognize, you know, what's going on, what is mine, and what do I need to leave alone and let other people do. And so that's my little thing. I will also say I might have to duck out periodically. I've got a couple contractors around our house and they may need some of my attention. So if I disappear for a minute, I'll be back. Thanks.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
I'm Kat. I live here in Port Townsend. I'm a volunteer at the cafe and was on the advisory board. See, I have a number of years in recovery. I don't know what to say, why I'm here. What does self-care mean to me? I had some friends that said, you know, when I was taking care of myself, and they go, well, self-care is sexy. So sometimes I feel sexy and sometimes I don't. You know, most of the time it's sort of like, but you know, what I've learned in my own personal recovery journey, which is I was always, you know, when I was using, anytime I did something for someone else, it was something because I wanted something back. And then it turned into I'm, you know, being there for others, and I'm actually getting something back, but it's not anything I expected. What it is it makes me feel better, feels good to be there for other people. But now it feels there's a deeper calling to truly show up for others and, you know, and listening and being there physically, and you know, in a spiritual sense, I'm trying to understand what it means to, you know, give good thoughts to others, and the sadness and trying to be positive when people are really hurting kind of overwhelms me sometimes, and just to think about some people, right, like right now, I cry very easily for them. So it seems to be intruding on my ability to be present in my own life. And in order for me to really show up for others, I have to honestly be able to do that without fear that it's going to take a huge impact on me. Because the deeper you go with this work, the deeper you have to do your own work. So that's it for me. And I want to apologize because I'm doing some work on the computer. I'm looking up images, so my head's going to be turning like this, but I am listening.
Thank you, Kat. Susanna?
I think you might be muted, Susanna.
I'm sorry. I'm Susanna. I am, oh God, what do I say? I have not been addicted to drugs or alcohol for long terms. I have dipped into all kinds. I mean, not all kinds. I have enjoyed doing that, but I'm more addicted, if you will, to healthy living. What does that mean? How do I do it? How do I pass it on and not talk at somebody and tell them what to do? Which is a turnoff that I've seen. But I have all this information, a lot of research. Sherry, where'd you go? No. I'm very visual and independent. So it's rare that I let somebody tell me what to do. I have belonged to many groups, studying many spiritual walks in my life. And this is the closest I've come to another group in years and years and years, except for my family and a few friends, one of whom I just found out voted for Trump. So I was in healthcare for 35 years as a hospice worker, CNA. I never wanted to be a nurse, even though I had a grandmother who was a nurse who I looked up to, and she was one of my my family. There's a lot of family members that I look to toward for teaching moments. They were incredible people, and so they still influence me. I love writing and singing and dancing and gardening and I know how to listen in ways that others can experience. And that's one of my main goals in life, is to be able to find a way for us to communicate back and forth, communication, conversation, share. I had a lot of years of college, and I was so I've always wanted to know everything. So that kind of shows up in my college education, 4+ years and no degree. So that's one of the things that really gets at me, is I'm so poor. So I need to come up with some options and some solutions. I don't like being poor anymore. It's always been something that I've lived in, and my parents gave us a way to learn about that, which is basically, it's not about the money. It's not about, don't let the world tell you who you are or how you think or what you do. I'll figure it out for yourself. Be all you can be. And that's what I've lived to all my life. And it doesn't always lead me to a winning point, because I have belief systems that keep me poor, for example. And I've been bouncing around my whole life from place to place to place, from Alaska to Hawaii, up and down, all around. And that's unsettling. So I'm really feeling glad that I am in Port Townsend, where my ancestors have been for generations. And I feel it, and I'm working. That's one of the reasons why I'm here, because it's a way to communicate with community, and it feels like grounding to me. So I get something from that, and I thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Susanna. Welcome.
Hmm.
For our next three, can we have Rhea, Maddie, and Carol?
My name is Rhea, and I've been here in Port Townsend for 11 years now. And my background is in therapy for family caregivers. And I did that for a period of time, and then I retired. We moved here, and I decided to go into actual being a caregiver. And so I've been doing that for the past 4 years as my retirement job. And I've tried to retire 2 or 3 times, and I still take on clients because I love it so much. And I'm really excited to be a part of the Recovery Cafe. And what self-care means to me is, it is the only way that I can do the kind of work that I love to do, and that's to have self-care. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhea.
Hi, I'm Maddie, and we've lived, Tom and I have lived here in Port Townsend for 26 years. I've spent my life working first as in the medical field as an angiography and mammography tech. And then after I went back to school and got my degree in English at UW, I had worked for 4 years at Montana State University as an English department writing tutor, and then 6 years at the UW English Department Writing Center as administrative director of the Writing Center. And so I have volunteered all my life. I spent 7 years with Habitat for Humanity here in town when it first began. And then I volunteered at the library here for about 4 or 5 years. And then I was a volunteer at Grant Street Elementary School as a volunteer teaching assistant. And so my life and my work have always led me to seek out interactions with individuals and groups and other human beings. It is the food, the soul of my life, is to be able to go out into the world and greet each day and all the strangers I meet.
Love you.
With an open heart and an open mind. And I'm here because I've watched Thomas over the summer devote so much energy and time to such an incredible project that Recovery Cafe is. And I'd like to find a way to participate and to help if I can.
Thank you, Maddie. Glad you're here. And Carol, you're on mute. Sorry.
I'm Carol McCreary, and many years of my work, like Maddie's, was in the English teaching and writing business. And now, like Rhea, I'm a caregiver, but I'm also pretty much an activist. And the reason I'm here is partly self-care, largely self-care. And I just enjoy learning from you. It's really been wonderful. And I hope to be a volunteer at Recovery Cafe. Right now I have a little thing on my desk. I don't want to talk about it, but if somebody could help me, it would be great. There's an opportunity to get a toilet trailer with CARES money, and I'm on a committee called the Human Services Committee that's working with the different governments. And it was requested by people who do events, cultural events. But a lot of us are trying to get it used, get it installed with showers, which means that homeless rural people would be using the same facility as goers at Centrum. So if any of you, just in the chat, if I can put my email there, if anybody has any ideas, I'd love to hear how to negotiate.
Why is that an issue?
It shouldn't be. That's what I'm saying. We need the messaging.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Carol. For next week, could we do Denise, John, then Shirley?
Hi, I'm Denise Banker, and I'm from Jefferson County Public Health. I work in the community as a Community Prevention and Wellness Initiative Coordinator, which means I do drug and alcohol prevention work for youth in the school district specific to Chimacum. But I also do drug and alcohol prevention work throughout the county. And even though it's focused on teen misuse and the prevention of that, it's really important for adults to recognize that they set the social norms. And so
Yes.
it is very much an adult problem, teen use is. And so that's how it broadens out and how I end up being someone who works in the full community, not just with teens. And I do a lot of school programming and community programming. Right now we're doing a Guiding Good Choices for parents of youth between the ages of 9 and 14. And we're going to do another one of those in November. But the reason I'm here is because I'm in recovery. I haven't had a drink since 1984, which feels really great. And I'm glad I'm here to be able to say that, because it may have been otherwise. Prior to doing public health work, I was a university professor in the state of Nebraska, and I taught English and literature and creative writing. What I think self-care is I think that self-care is taking time out to do something or behave in a way that is positive in terms of how you're moving forward in your emotional state. And so, you know, like for instance, if you've been at the computer for 4 hours, which often happens to me, it's a nice thing to do, and it is self-care to say, you know what, I need to take a break from this. I need to stand up, take a deep breath, walk around the house, or even walk down to the post office. I'm close to the post office, take a walk around the neighborhood, that kind of thing. So it's being aware of the need to give yourself a break and to take care of yourself in that way with positive things, right? Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. John, if you're ready.
Yeah, I'm John Hamilton. What brings me here is that I'm a Vietnam combat veteran, and I've gone through quite a bit with post-traumatic stress and other things that happened, dealing with the VA and all that. What brings me to Dove House is going to reach out to help other veterans in some way or format. And self-care to me means that I have to monitor, you know, my emotional feelings. I don't, my problems are that I can get angry. You know, I have a lot of anxiety that can come up, and that's a warning signal for me. So I have to manage my life that way. Sometimes make choices about going away or staying there to work through the anxieties and whatnot. But as I've gotten older, unfortunately, the anxieties are harder to manage. A lot of that has to do with the fact that I have had, well, I still have cancer from Agent Orange exposure. The treatment for that set off all the drugs that were managing my anxiety and depression. It just kind of blew them out of the water, and I had to go through a whole bunch of research on and nothing has brought me back to where I was prior to that cancer treatment, which set me off in a negative spiral with the post-traumatic stress. So I'm working harder than I have been for a long time with those issues. And self-care is managing those for me, and staying aware of where I am on an emotional basis and what my triggers are.
Thank you, John. And Shirley, if you're ready.
My name is Shirley, and I started out in recovery because of a bad marriage, and we worked at that for a while, but it did not work. He was less inclined, and you know, if two people have a problem, both of them have to participate, and he didn't want to do that. And that happened over and over because my addiction is fixing the relationship between me and my dad. Well, of course, Dad's dead, and Dad was mostly dead to my sister and I anyway. And because of that, I don't know, I don't know whether I was more needy or not needy enough, or I don't know, but that's my addiction. And so I've had lots of relationships that have not worked out, and along with all the extensions of that. And so I have been single for many, many, many years, and inevitably I'm attracted to the man that is the dysfunctional one. It never fails. I even picked one out on a line that said, "Ooh, he's interesting," and my friend said, "Oh, well, maybe not. He's the alcoholic of the group." And I never even knew his name. I never talked to him. I just knew. That's the intuitive part of this, I guess. So with that out of the way, I had decided that I wanted to do more with my life. And so I did, and ended up much better. I led a ACA group. That's the group, Adult Children Anonymous. That's the group that really saved my bacon, because it's just like Recovery Cafe. It covers everything. We're all recovering from something, and so I didn't fit in with the alcohol and the drugs group, and ACA just popped up right when I needed it. So I spent years doing that. I facilitated 2 ACA meetings a week for 4 years. And oh gosh, it was just so amazing what I learned from all these people, and am continuing that, because new things, as I age and my life changes, new things pop up. Amazing. Stay away from me, new things. I've had enough. So I'm still at it. I'm extremely grateful for all of this that happened just this short time. And I just want to say that the self-care part of it is probably the hardest, because I still want to, I don't know, just kind of go along and take what happens instead of being strong enough. And I've had 2 strokes, and I've moved in with my daughter and son-in-law, and that's mostly working out. But the addition of the strokes, and I got a kitty of all the damn things to do, really dumb at my most chaotic period of life, I think. And so she's been a real issue, and she's a biter, and so we're having to work with that. And my physical situation, I moved in with my daughter and son-in-law, and that has its own issues. And so it just feels kind of like a is calling me during this period of time. And so listening to and talking to people that understand what I'm going through, even though it's different from theirs, it's still the same. And that just comforts me beyond belief. So I turn to you guys, and I'm so grateful that you're here. But that's why I'm here. And self-care is a little more difficult than it was, with the added issue. And they have no idea what's going to happen now. So we're just kind of moving along. I got a cat tree for my cat, and hopefully she'll jump to the top and just stay there. She's getting better though. She's 6.5 months old. And so she is getting better her age. And then on top of that, we got fleas. So and then the transition between home and here has been ugh. It's been quite a thing for me, quite a thing. But I am blessed with a daughter that is very, very supportive, and the grandkids are in college. They'll be coming home, so that'll be another change. So I'm just doing the best I can, and I'm just so grateful for everybody here. And the self-care, I'm so glad this has come up because it reminds me that I need to take care of myself. And so that's what I'm doing. I got a lot to take care of, but I'm okay. I feel okay, and I'm just so grateful for friends and this program. It's just fabulous. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shirley.
Brian,
So,
could I say something in addition to what I was saying?
is it okay if we put a pin in it for a little bit, Susanna? Yeah, I've got 4 people left, and then I want to make sure Teresa gets to share.
Okay.
Yeah, on the topic. Okay.
The thing that I have to share is also important, so I hope you don't. Hope I don't get lost. Okay.
Okay. We will all have time to contribute. Yes. All right. So I have 4 people left. We'll do Jan and Celia, and then I have 2 people who haven't shared their screen, and I'll let you 2 go after Jan and Celia. It's up to you if you'd like to share or not. So Jan, you can go ahead.
Okay, I'm Jan, and I'm a retired teacher, just kind of recently. It feels like yesterday, and it's been 3 years. So, and just like darn near everybody on in this group, I was a writing instructor, and it's my passion, and it's my I'm taking a writing class right now, and just feel like I'm lost in all of my favorite stuff. So that's part of my self-care these days. The thing that is just a little bit different about that is I went from traditional classrooms to multi-age classrooms, and then finished my last 20 years at the Chimicum Pie program. So I think some of you may know that. And I just absolutely loved it because I got to work with my students for 8 years before they went on to the next teacher. And so my families were all my friends and my loved ones. Self-care to me is exactly what Bruce mentioned at the very top of this, and that is what's mine and what can I let other people figure out for themselves. And I have 3 children who are now in their late 20s, and it doesn't get easier. I taught parenting classes for a long time and thought I knew what I was doing until they turned 20, and then it's a whole different ball game. And like some of the others have mentioned, I'm really, I'm noticing that I'm 69, almost 70 now, and I'm noticing that at this point in time, the self-care, which I thought was going to be all handled, I thought we were pretty steady, and it's equally as much of a challenge as it was growing up with lots in my life. So one of the things I've learned from my recovery circle is to stay in each moment. That's part of my healthcare, and not just go way ahead of myself. And the other thing that with my adult children now, I'm really struggling to fill myself so that I can give to them and be there for them. And when I write about the struggles that I'm having with self-care, it's like I feel empty. I have to take care of myself so that I can give to others. That's it.
Thanks, Jan.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll go Celia and then Sherry in the chat so that you'd like to share. And then Alicia, hello. You can go after Sherry.
Hi, I'm Celia, and as always, the day is always a little bit better when they have a recovery cafe gathering, because everybody is it's so nice to see everybody, and particularly at this time when we're all kind of hunkered down, it's so nice to see such wonderful, familiar faces. I have a 15-year-old at home doing high school, so that makes our life a little bit unusual, or kind of like everybody else around here. I guess the topic of self-care is particularly on my mind because trying to work with a 15-year-old in these circumstances, but also for myself. I grew up with, and most of my life have dealt with major alcoholism and mental health issues in my family and extended family. And I was very much raised to be kind of the little drop of joy or the fixer. And so it's been very difficult for me to understand, even begin to understand what self-care is, because my go-to is always the needs of others, but then I find I'm completely depleted and don't, and so I'm really starting to feel like I'm, for the first time, starting to kind of grok what that means. And I really, what Jan and Bruce said about starting to really recognize what's your stuff and what is, like for me to really feel like I've got to take care, when maybe the thing of taking care is taking care of me and the other person is stepping back. Yes. And so that really spoke to me about, that's kind of where I'm seeing the significance of self-care right now, is setting those boundaries and figuring out my stuff rather than kind of bringing it to the table when I feel there's a emptiness that I feel like I need to fill. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Celia.
Thank you, Celia. Hi, Sherry here. I'm not being unsociable. I have a really low bandwidth and I can crash us all. And I really don't want to do that today. So that's the reason that I turned my video off. And that's also the reason why I ask other folks to mute when they're not the one speaking, because that can also crash us all. So I'm learning. And, grandmothers and technology, it's pretty interesting. I start with saying that I graduated from Evergreen at the age of 56. And the other thing that I'd like to say is that when I finally discovered Al-Anon in May of 2013, I was asked if I had a qualifier, and I couldn't think of anyone in my family who was not a qualifier. So when the topic of codependence has been really addressed so beautifully by this group as a collective today, with regard to being a fixer, with regard to being the drop of sunshine or whatever that was. It was a really beautiful way to address it. I was that. And I learned before I was verbal to read other people, and that was for the sake of my own survival. So it's been a rough and long road. I've had health challenges that I've been dealing with for probably all my life, but I started 1 or 2 years ago. And so self-care for me means regaining a state of remission. And I get to live between remission and being triggered physiologically. And I've just recently learned a whole lot about my own health. And I'm probably very, very close to getting a real diagnosis every 2 years. So I'm looking forward to that. And I'm also, self-care is kind of a full-time job for me right now. And the list is very long of what I do for self-care. And it includes things like Epsom salt and baking soda baths. It includes diffusing essential oils. It includes a lot of spiritual work. It includes, for me, cooking is therapy. I learned that when I was in a very deep state of grief, almost unbearable grief, 5+ years ago. And I've also been in Peru. I spent more than half my time for 13+ years in Peru. And I found out that they're open again, so I'll be in Peru, but I'll be joining y'all on Zoom from Peru. How's that? That work?
Yeah.
So I learned much about natural medicine there, and plant medicine, and food as medicine. So I'm now translating that into life in the U.S. And my dream is to be a bridge between Peru and the United States, because Peru is about community. And we're just beginning to learn, and that's what COVID has brought us, in my opinion, is the need to connect with one another in a community. And my vision of my United States community is the entire Olympic Peninsula. We can do this, y'all. It's nice to be with you. I have goosebumps, as a matter of fact, because you are my tribe, and I know that. Thank you.
Thanks,
That's
Sherry.
it for me.
And Alicia?
Hi, can you hear me? Yeah, great. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing. I am new to this group. I'm trying to find a way to get involved with the Recovery Cafe. I would love to become a volunteer, or, you know, try to figure out what other needs there are. I have spent a lot of time in my life volunteering over the years, but not recently. I know COVID's affected a lot of people, and part of the way it's affected me is I lost some of the work that I was doing, so now I have more time. And this just seems like such a great way to spend time, is volunteering with this cafe. So that's my main interest. And yeah, I just have worked as a private chef, so that's some of my background. And self-care to me looks pretty tangible these days. It's, you know, waking up and having a cup of coffee and reading my book, or going in the garden, going on walks, getting exercise, connecting with friends in new and, you know, new ways that we haven't done before, online video chats, little text messages here and there. Just finding new and interesting ways to support each other. Thank you all.
Thanks for being here. I do feel some urgency to get us over to Teresa. I do want to acknowledge we have one other person who joined. If you wanted to introduce yourself real briefly, we'd love to hear your voice. If not, that is totally fine. We are recording this session, so I'll give you a second here. Okay, Teresa, would you like to take us away now?
Sure thing. So it was really great to hear all of kind of your experiences and wisdom around self-care. You covered a lot, right? I think a big thing that I heard is self-care is boundaries, and like just an understanding like of what our capacity is. And I think I'm not surprised, but it sounds very clear that I'm in conversation with a lot of people who are used to caregiving, used to thinking about others' needs, long history of that. And so I think that self-care connected to boundaries makes so much sense, because that, I can't quite remember who said it. It might have been Rhea, but someone said, like, in order to do what I want to do, I have to do self-care. And I think many of us know that really deeply. And so this is just an acknowledgement that self-care, you know, it isn't bubble baths only, or just like doing kind of these desired things. Sometimes, like this morning, I was thinking to myself, I decided to sweep my room, and I was just like, this is self-care, because like every day that my like is in this like dusty hairball on the floor, it like, you know, brings, you know, just unhappiness. And so just to take the 5 minutes to do something that like maybe I wouldn't have associated with self-care, but it brings stuff down for me. It like it really does help me kind of feel more grounded in the rest of my day. So Yeah, so today what mostly we wanted to do was to have some discussion around self-care, but also just to share some practices that are kind of like self-regulation, kind self-care little tools. And with any tools, I just invite you to join me in experimenting with them. If they work for you, great, take them with you. If not, no big deal. So first, and we've been talking, so maybe just like a little bit of slight movement. Maybe first just asking folks to like shift in your chair a little bit. We're sitting a lot, right? Yeah, you can move a little bit. So that might feel good. And so with that, the first practice that I want to share with you is called the butterfly hug. This comes from a EMDR practitioner, I think, came up with it and is used widely amongst counselors and therapists who use EMDR. And it's a practice that I like, and it kind of works twofold. What we're learning is that if we do some sort of movement that crosses the midline of our body, that uses both sides of our body, that that movement can help us calm down. And so that's like why I heard people say walking is helpful. Like these things are supportive in regulating us. And then the other thing with the butterfly hug is there's, as you notice, like I'm putting pressure on my chest. And so, and the idea behind that is it's like sending oxytocin into our body, like feel good chemicals that our body creates, why it feels good to pet our dog, why it feels good to receive a hug. And the cool thing is we can actually do it to ourselves as well. So if you would join me, and hopefully it doesn't make too much noise as I do this, but just tapping back and forth slowly and noticing what that feels like. And you can keep your eyes open or closed, whatever feels good for you. And maybe just noticing your breath as you do it, wherever your breath might be at. Wow. Thank you all for trying that out with me. And as we're gonna just try a couple different practices, partially to like embody that like movement is helpful, right, as a self-care thing. And so, and after we do a practice, just invite, does anyone have any observations of what that was like for them to give that a try, to try that? And if you do, you can unmute yourself and say something. It looks like Jan has a hand up.
Me too.
I just noticed how silent it all became. You know, there was, it just all of a sudden, all of us on this whole thing, it just became silent. And it's that patting, that rhythmic thing that worked for me. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Jan.
Sorry.
Go for it, Sherry.
What? Can I, Susanna, can I talk? Hello? For me, it was, I felt like I had a better sense of my body that I take for granted. Every time I touched the body, I could feel the body just, I don't know try to describe that. It wasn't like it was empty. It's obviously full, but I could feel it more. I wasn't taking it for granted. Thank you.
Wonderful. No, that makes total sense, Susanna. And Sherry, I think you were going to say something too, and then after that, we'll come back to you, Maddie.
I felt grounded and calm, and it's so important as a part of the self-care that I'm very deeply involved in with regard to remission. This is physiological, so this is really important, and it's a new tool, and absolutely I'll be using it regularly. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Sherry. And Maddie, and then I saw you, Rhea.
It was interesting because it was not purposeful, but as I was tapping, I began tapping out a rhythm. I couldn't just go. I had to go. I don't know. I love music. Maybe that did it, but it just started coming out.
That's great. Totally make it your own.
Yes.
Totally. Thank you, Maddie. And Rhea, were you going to say something?
At first I was doing it harder, and then I started imagining what the name of it is, butterfly hug, and I thought, oh, I think I'm just going to do it gently. And then all of a sudden I felt like there was a butterfly touching me. And it was just, it all just was beautiful, this butterfly touching me. And so I like that. And I can see how easy it would be, there's my being a caregiver, how easily I could share that with another who could also benefit from it.
Totally. Yeah. Great. That was really beautiful. Brian?
I was wondering, Teresa, if you could speak to maybe some of the, I don't know, the theory behind it. You know, I've heard it called bilateral stimulation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, it's bilateral stimulation. The EMDR therapy is based on using it, and it's used outside of EMDR therapy. I think a lot of trauma research is just finding that if we do movement that crosses our midline, and so EMDR therapy uses things like eye movement to do that, but also incorporates the like felt touch of movement, but things like rowing, things like walking, we might notice that if we do these things that it brings stuff down for us. It helps us calm down. You know, movement in general we know is helpful, and you know, some theories behind it is it brings us into the present moment rather than what we're ruminating on, like, and also understanding that just connecting the right and the left brain is helpful in that as well. So yeah, and what I would say is, like, I like the butterfly hug because it also has the like soothing touch component, that like the oxytocin component, but there's like more discreet ways to do this as well. Like maybe, you know, depending on folks' comfort level, like they might not want to do this in public spaces, which is totally fine. But something you can do instead is just tap on your thighs or your knees, or folks feeling anxious. I know people that just tap back and forth on their steering wheel as a way to like try and help regulate. So just there's like more incognito ways to do this if you so choose. And one thing I would say is just like doing it like slow can help kind of bring us down. So yeah.
I guess I'd like to bring up part of my experience with it. I have an incomplete spinal cord injury, which affects my hands, particularly my right hand. So it was actually kind of distracting to me because my sensory experience on the sides of my body is very different. So is there any approach to helping that, or is it just something that might be, I don't know.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I know that like bilateral stimulation can be done like audio wise too, right? Like getting like music or something low key to kind of play back and forth. And that can do that as well and doesn't require, movement of the body. And so I don't know if that would be an adjustment.
And similarly, Teresa, you've shown me visual as well, correct?
And the only thing that I would caveat to say, like the butterfly hug is like just used in the EMDR therapist as like a regulation tool, but using the bilateral stimulation to do your own trauma therapy, not recommended. So just putting that disclaimer out there. But in general, visual, like looking back and forth, but using it just as a way to calm down and not as a way to work through stuff. So. Yeah.
Maybe Teresa, as a follow-up, we could share some resources with the group in an email.
Totally.
To do some videos or other things to look at.
Totally. And there might be apps that I can think of that would be helpful. So, and so with that, the next thing we wanted to do is show just like a little video, because I think within this, some people talked about like breaks, like self-care is breaks. And oftentimes, especially if we're people that really are in tune and caring for other people's needs, remembering to take breaks ourselves is a big thing. So what I'm going to try and do is screen share a video, or I think I can. Okay, let me see. One second.
And while you're doing, not to ask you to multitask, Teresa, but I saw a chat from Sherry asking, does this relate to EFT that you know of?
EFT is a different practice. And so I think, and so I don't know, I don't practice EFT, so I couldn't speak to how much similarity there is and there isn't. I just know that, that EFT is another kind of, practice that people do find helpful. So hopefully that's of, 1 second.
Somebody has a big beard. Who's that? Anybody there?
Okay. And can people see my screen now?
No.
No?
I can't.
Daniel Pink? I can see it.
Yes, I see it.
I've got it.
Okay. All right. I'm going to try.
Days 2.21. There's a whole other program coming up. What the heck?
Yeah, that's the screen, Susanna. So Teresa's going to share us a video.
Oh.
Okay. And let's see.
Okay.
And let's see if you can hear it.
Oh.
Can you hear anything?
No.
Okay.
I cannot.
I found, Teresa, that when you hit the share screen button on the bottom left corner, there's a button that says share computer sound. Oops. And if everyone could remain mute, that also helps.
Okay, take two.
Hi everyone, welcome to another Pinkcast. Over the last several years, scientists have begun studying breaks. And what they've discovered is that breaks matter a lot more than we realize. We should be taking more breaks, but we should also be taking certain kinds of breaks. So here are the 5 guiding principles that science tells us constitute effective restorative breaks. 1, something beats nothing. You're better off taking a 1 or 2 minute break than taking no break at all. 2, moving beats stationary. Getting a little movement is far superior to staying in your seat. 3, social beats solo. It turns out that breaks with other people are more restorative than breaks on our own, and that's true even for introverts. 4, outside beats inside. The research on the restorative effects of nature is just astonishing. And so you're better off getting out of the building than staying in the building. And 5, fully detached beats semi-detached. So what does that mean? It means that you've got to remove not only your body, but also your mind. Don't talk about work. Don't bring your phone. Don't spend your break with your nose in your Instagram feed. And what this amounts to is that there's a kind of a platonic ideal of effective breaks. The best break is something like this. Go outside, take a walk with someone you like, talk about something other than work, and leave your phone behind. That's what I'm going to do right now. Thanks for watching the Pinkcast.
Okay. So were they able to hear and see that okay?
Thanks for asking. Mine
And I,
Yes.
kept coming in and out. Yeah. Yes.
And we can share the link for it so people can see it later. Was that a question, Rhea?
the first one that he said, was it something means nothing?
Something is better than nothing. So
Oh, something's better than nothing. Okay.
So taking the break is better than no break at all, even if it's like 2 minutes, is my interpretation of it.
Yeah.
Well, so that was like a really quick thing on breaks. And so we wanted to open it up for some discussion, and it could be reaction to this, but also kind of adding the like extra level of, so we've like maybe had self-care practices and then 2020 happened, COVID-19 happened, wildfires happened, so much has happened this year. I mean, it's just this year is so much extra in just ways that I can't even, right? I think to see a lot of nods. And so something that we're curious about is how have you adapted your self-care practices? And this is really in a way to kind of learn from each other, because in some ways it's been a great year for self-care because it's made us focus on it. But also it's been challenging because what I noticed is some of the things that video covered look different or might be harder right now. So I want to open it up to that. And I see Kat, you're raising your hand.
Yeah, one of the things that's regarding COVID in the recovery community is that, we physically see each other in the little squares, and we can call each other, but there are many people that are that I'm not seeing at all, and others are not seeing, and there's no way to really check up on them. That the network is not that clear. And then you find out that, they've been really in trouble, whether it's health-wise or, they've relapsed or they've died. And it's, the thing that comes up is that that's really traumatizing, that aspect of it, that I'm, when I get on my recovery circles and I hear somebody's really in trouble, that they spoke into it and they showed up, and we as a collective can show up for them, but they disappear anyway. And that part is really hard. That disconnection is even more, I don't really know the word for it, but difficult. Have any thoughts on that? Like, has anybody else experienced that?
I can speak to that.
Okay.
I can speak to that if that's all right.
Go ahead, Sherry.
Great. Yeah, my daughter died. My daughter died. She died May 9th. I could not go see her. I did not get to say goodbye to my daughter. And that's the big goodbye. And then my other daughter, my surviving daughter, lost her father on September 12th. So we have had the COVID experience and it's not a contest, but we have had the ultimate COVID experience. And add that to the dysfunction and the mental health issues in my family, and it's no wonder that my health imploded. So although I don't know, as far as the phases of grief, probably this is a pretty educated group of people, and I'm so thrilled to be with you all. But the stages of grief, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and then the other things that I've learned about grief through personal experience, and that's another tragedy 5 years ago. There were 2 in 1 week. So the fact that I'm still on this planet absolutely amazes me. And then the fact that I am actually discovering the ways that I can become functional again and share that information with my daughters, who I believe share my genetic health challenge, my daughter and my granddaughters, possibly a grandson or 2 as well. So self-care, let's bring it back to that. There has never been a time in our lives where self-care has not been more vitally important. And I will say yes to those walks in nature. I will also say yes to drumming, rhythm, some sort of drumming. Now, I can't drum anymore. I have 8 pinches in my spinal cord, Bruce. I can relate. And a lot of mine are cervical spine. So I have to be really... and the reason that I'm sharing all this open with all of you is because this is a forum now. We have this forum. We have Recovery Cafe. And we have circles like this, where everything that you've said, Kat, resonated. And late. And we have to have each other. Somebody else can speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. I'm so sorry for your loss, and also just here. I appreciate you sharing with us what works and supports you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and also hearing like how important and helpful it is to just know that we're not alone, right? To be able to connect. That I know for myself, that's something that just can really help me get through hard times. Thank you, just to be able to see that connection happening real time. You're doing it right now.
One thing I wanted to add, or I guess reiterate, is the ways that we have been able to cope. I imagine, all of us have all kinds of skills and strengths of how we cope with life, how we take care of ourselves. And we may not even, before at least, have consciously engaged with or realized that that's what we were doing pre-pandemic, I'll say. And then a lot of those things that we did have or were doing may not be available to us, or if they are available to us, it's no longer a stress relieving activity for us because we have to suit up, armor up to go out into the world, or being around other people is not a fun, experience all the time. Anyway, I wanted to validate that feeling and also name it, because at least for me, it's been an exercise in being creative and acknowledging, oh yeah, I do have to take care of myself, and I've got to figure out some new ways to do that, because those things I used to do are not really available to me anymore. But Teresa, we only have about 12 minutes left. And so if you had any final activity or thought for us, I'd love to kick it back.
Yeah, totally. So I had like 2 more practices, and they're both pretty short. So we'll see if maybe we could do them both, if that's cool, and then and go from there. So The first one is progressive muscle relaxation. And with anything we do, really just do, you know, I respect that you know yourself and your body best. And so if ever I give a directive, like you get to adjust and modify and not do based on what you know would be okay for you. So with that said, what this is just intentionally tensing parts of our body and then releasing that tension. And the idea behind that, I don't know about y'all, but often if I'm stressed, if I'm in need of some self-care, my body's tense and I might not even know it. I hold it in my jaw, I hold it in my shoulders. And so what this is acknowledging that and intentionally tensing and then releasing it to try and relieve some of that tension that is in your body. So if you would like to join me, I'm going to tense and count to the count of 5, tensing, and then we'll release and then just allow ourselves to relax to the count of 10. So to start, I'm going to start with my face. So I'm going to scrunch up my face to the count of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and release. Let it relax. 10, 9, 8. If you have any tension in your forehead or jaw, just try and let it drop. 6, 5, 4. If it helps, you can say the word relax to yourself in your head. 3, 2, and 1. And now taking a breath. And now we'll transition to the shoulders, scrunching them up towards our ears to the count of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and release. And just allowing them to relax. 10, 9, 8. If some movement feels good, go for it. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And taking a breath, and maybe just noticing the difference between what the tension feels like and what the relaxation feels like. Next, I'm going to make fists with my hands to the count of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and release. I let mine drop to the count of 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And then last, I like to just point my toes and create some tension in my toes, my feet, and my legs to the count of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and release to the count of 10, 9, 8, 7. Just allow yourself to maybe melt into the chair that you're sitting on. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And taking one more breath. And this one I like to do in bed sometimes. That's a nice one. And you can do like a whole body one. And yeah, and maybe real quick, and maybe chat's a good function for this if folks have any kind of quick feedback on how that was for them.
Grounding and calming.
Cool. Well, thanks for trying that out with me. And then the last one that I was gonna introduce is more of like a meditation. I think the first two kind of had to do with our body, so I wanted to do with one that was more so just a visualization and just to have a little bit of a diversity in tools. So yeah, for this one, I invite y'all to, if you're not in a comfortable position already, to get comfortable. Whatever that may be. And this is a practice called sunbathing. So, and you can keep your eyes open or closed, whatever works best for you. So to start, just take a moment and notice your breath. Wherever it may be, whatever the pace, just noticing the breathing in and out. And as you breathe your next breath in, I'd like you to imagine that the sun is shining on your face. Imagining that you can feel the warmth of the sun, that you can feel your face muscles relax under this warmth. Maybe allowing any tension in your forehead and cheeks to melt away. And moving our attention to our shoulders, imagining that you can feel the sun on your shoulders as well. The gentle heat of the sun warming your shoulders, allowing them to relax. Just allowing yourself to soak in the sun. Allowing yourself to experience the warmth of the sun on your arms and your hands. Just soaking in warmth and relaxation. Allowing yourself to let go of any tension that may still be there. And when you're ready, when you hear the sound of a bell, you can slowly come back to the room. Well, thanks for trying that one out with me too. Not everyone loves the sun. I do, but I figure a fair amount of people do. So that's just a practice of part of self-care can just be soaking in the good. That's another way I actually like using butterfly hug as a way to like integrate the good. Like sometimes it's just pausing to like the moments that we're grateful for, the moments that bring us some joy, and soaking it in. And that could be part of self-care and can feel so crucial when we're caring for others and when, as I can hear from so many of you, that you're really devoted to your own work in yourselves and in supporting others. And there's a lot of pressure in that. And so being able to balance that out with the moments of joy can be sustaining for us. So thank you all for joining me in that practice. And so Brian, maybe I'll hand it over to you for, yeah.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you, Teresa, for facilitating our training today.
Thank
We
you.
had a couple minutes, and so I wanted to ask Denise to share about the public health initiative she has later this month, and then we'll wrap up.
Thank you so much, Teresa.
Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you, Brian. So what I'd like to let everybody know is that on Saturday, the 24th of October, we are having a DEA drug take back event, and we're holding one of them at the public health office right outside, you know, in the parking lot of the QFC. And the other one is in padlock at the QFC also, and that's in the parking lot as well. And people can bring any kind of unused medication. We can't take chemotherapy drugs, and we can't take sharps, so we can't take needles.
Sure. Oh.
But we can take everything else, whether it was for you or your dog or your cat, or if it's prescription, if it's non-prescription, if it's illicit. I mean, you can bring anything and just dump it in the box. And that runs from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. On Saturday, the 24th of October.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I study natural health, and so I'm wondering, and I know that there is, in Port Townsend, there's a certain amount of trust around knowing about that. I'm wondering if I brought something that is natural healing, like herbs, would that be acceptable or not? As long as it's labeled.
To throw into the box? Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Thank you for that, Denise. Thank you everybody so much for being here today. Thank you again to Teresa. I always wish we had more time because there's so much that we could do here. And for the sake of self-care, let's all take a break and we move on to our next thing.
Totally. And I'll say we will send out resources in an email as follow-up. So
I